Hey everybody, this is Krista from Magnolia Ridge Farm and Gardens, and we are back again today. And this is not actually the video I had planned on putting up today, but I wasn't quite done filming the one I'm working on, so we are going with this one. And as you can see, it is a beautiful day. This was several days ago, and I am picking the kale on my porch garden, which if you have not seen the porch garden tour, I will link that video here. But we are starting to get frost at night. So far it has not hurt anything but my flowers, as you can see right in the front corner by the flag. Some of my mums have died, but some of them are still doing okay. But the kale had a little bit of an outbreak of, I'm not sure if it was aphids or if it's like the cabbage moths larva breaking out. And I didn't notice it because there was no damage to the leaves yet, but when I started picking, I saw the bugs and a little bit of just starting to be some of the lacing. So I am having to clean this kale really, really well. But you know what? Food comes dirty, it comes buggy, especially when you are not using chemicals and trying to do everything without the aid of pesticides, and we don't use anything around here. So what I did was use vinegar and water, and I rinsed several times until I did not see any more bugs in the water, and then I stripped the leaves and put them in one more bath of vinegar water, and I didn't see anything. So I looked at each leaf as I pulled it out just in case and rinsed it, and I think we were good to go. But I'm hoping the cold nights, we have some that are actually like down at freezing rather than just some frost. I'm hoping these really cold nights we have in a few days will take care of that bug pressure for me. So what we're making today is actually two soups. I wanted to make a kale like a Zuppa Toscana. It's like an Olive Garden knockoff, just so I could use this kale because it was getting very large. I also need to use up my lettuce. So next week we're going to be eating lots of salads, and I need to pick my collard greens, but one thing at a time. So I wanted to get some more soups in the freezer because we've basically gone through most of the ones that I had from September's batch that I made. And so I decided I was going to pick this kale, and since I'm doing the Zuppa Toscana, which it's a cream base and uses potatoes, I would go ahead and make another batch of corn chowder because I already had the corn dekerneled and in the freezer in a bag. So I could just grab that bag out, and while I was doing potatoes and while I had the heavy cream that I had purchased, I could just go ahead and make both of these soups at one time and get some soups back in our freezer for these crazy days up through Christmas. So that's what we're going to do. I know I had mentioned corn chowder on the Soup Timber video, which I will also post here if you haven't seen that one, but I had forgotten to film it, and so it wasn't really included in that video. I don't remember if I posted the recipe. I may have because I mentioned it, but I'm going to kind of show you here. And this is another good thing. I mean, prep work, a lot of this video is mostly like the prep part because the soups come together beautifully. But prep work is really your friend. Prep people. Like, that's all I can say. And I'm not talking about like be crazy preppers, although we do prep a lot of things. But preparing foods ahead of time, one, is going to give you the best nutritional value rather than having to go out to eat when things are not convenient. And two, it's going to save you a lot of time, a lot of headache, and a lot of money. Because just like with this, because I knew I was going to be prepping potatoes, and potatoes were actually on sale, plus I already had to buy the heavy cream for one of the recipes, I could use the rest of that heavy cream by going ahead and making two recipes. I don't even think this took me maybe an hour and a half to get all of this done. And then I let it cool while I took my daughter to dance. And when I came back, I packaged it all up, and boom, we have a lot of food in the freezer. Plus we've had a couple different recipes of soup as I've made them. This was not the only soup I made this week, but as I made a batch here and there, I kept some out for dinner. And so, was it last night or a couple nights ago? I pulled out some leftovers, and we had like 3 different types of soup and some roast beef and over rice that I had made. And so everybody just kind of came in and picked their poison. Like, this is what they wanted, so they got a bowl of this, or they got the rice and beef. Like, it was so easy on a night that I had been running crazy. As you can see, this video is up a day late because yesterday was insane. And normally, like I said, I do my voiceovers on Thursdays right before I post the video. I just haven't quite gotten ahead on doing the voiceovers and having the videos ready to go or pre-scheduled. I've gotten much better at filming and pre-planning the content of when I'm going to make what, so I can use for what week and what video. However, I'm still down to the week of with my timing on the voiceovers, and that will hopefully change over the winter, and I can get a couple weeks ahead so I can stay even more consistent. But I think I've been doing a better job. You can let me know what you think and what you think of the channel as I have transitioned more towards cooking, but still showing a little bit of garden as it's relevant to cooking. But anyway, so this is the key. Prepping everything together. Both of these recipes also used a lot of onion. I should have chopped all the onion at one time, but I went ahead and wanted to get the one recipe, the Zuppa Toscana, going because I had to cook the meat. And that one uses mild Italian sausage. I did buy some at the grocery store because when I went to pull out my corn and everything for this, I did not have any sausage from my friend Chantel. I prefer to buy from local meat sources, and I've mentioned her before with Farm and Forge. She grows the pigs out and processes them, and I thought I had some of hers, but it was breakfast sausage and plain ground pork, and so I just ran and bought some mild sausage because I didn't want to take the time to have to thaw it out and make the seasoning of it up. I wanted it ready to go, so I just grabbed some mild sausage from the store for this one. And so it was on the stove behind me cooking. I did not show that part. And I wanted to get the onions in and get started on these potatoes. After I cleaned the kale, I cleaned both batches of potatoes at the same time. So while we're watching this amount of potatoes, did you know that potatoes are the world's 4th largest food crop? A lot of people live off of potatoes, and they are gluten-free. They're actually nutritious. They have like, oh gosh, what is it? Potassium and vitamin C. That's it. And unfortunately, our largest producers are India and China. So I do like getting my potatoes local if I don't grow them myself. I normally grow them. If I don't grow them, we grow them up at Dad's farm. This year, I did not grow any. Dad did grow some, but he didn't grow as many as he normally does, so I didn't get any from him. But I did buy some from a local place. And then at the store the other day, they had the russets on sale, so I did buy some russets, these big old russets. I did buy those from the store because it was like, I don't know, $2 a bag for 5 pounds of potatoes. Down from like $5.50 a bag or something. I don't know. It was super cheap. And I was like, yes, please. So I did get those. We are not the leading provider of potatoes. We do grow potatoes okay here in North Carolina, but North Carolina is the #1 U.S. supplier for growing sweet potatoes. We grow about 64% of the U.S. sweet potato crop right here in North Carolina. So there's some random potato facts for you. And just to add one more, since we're still chopping potatoes here, did you know that the French fry was introduced to America for the first time, or at least credited to Thomas Jefferson, who served them at a White House dinner? So, look, we had some fun facts, North Carolina, worldwide, and even some political facts. So there you go, all in one video. So, back to this. I am steel chopping potatoes. I made double batches of both of these soups. So I used all 5 pounds of the russet potatoes, and I used 3 pounds of the white potatoes for the corn recipe. So here's the corn, and I have it bagged up. This was fresh local corn. Some of this may have been my corn, but I did buy some as well. But I am measuring it out because I didn't write how many cups was in that bag. So I'm measuring it out just to see like how many of the recipe I need to make. And it was 2.5 of the recipe. So I actually had to measure out all the rest of the ingredients for 2.5, which is why I ended up with about 3 pounds of the white potatoes, because it's one pound of red, white, or yellow potatoes per 4 cups of corn. And if I err on the side of, if I have a little more potato, that's okay with me, because that's going to be a texture thing. So, and with that, you do want to rinse your potatoes. I rinsed if you noticed when I was cutting up the russets for the Zuppa Toscana, I put them in water and I rinsed them because you want to get some of that starch out. Now, when I cooked the Zuppa Toscana, there was a little bit of, it's like a brown starchy that formed on the top, but I was able to take like a napkin and just run it along and it sticks to it and get that little starchy off. With the corn chowder, I did not peel my potatoes because you're going to, they're very thin-skinned white potatoes. I prefer to use Yukon Gold for it, but I did not have any. But they're very thin-skinned, and you're going to use an immersion blender and blend up for a smoother texture. So I'm not really worried about the potato skins. I did have to pause in prepping the corn chowder because the Zuppa Toscana was ready for the kale. And so with the kale, what I do is I like to roll it up like you're going to do chiffonade, which is a method where you like ribbon greens and lettuce and things like that. And so I roll it up and then chiffonade it and then chop it again to get smaller pieces. And I thought I had caught my nail with the knife, but I didn't. So that's what I'm doing. I'm kind of rolling up these big coarse leaves so that when I chop them, they form little ribbons, and then I can run the knife back through. And it's a quick way to cut. You could use, I think one of the recipes said to use like a mandolin slicer for the potatoes on the largest setting and get rounds and then quarter those. I don't use a whole ton of gadgets. I prefer to just chop with a good knife, and I can get my potato slices pretty even, as you could see. Instead of peeling the potatoes and then chopping them, I just took slices off the edges, which make them easy to lay down on the thing, and then I can julienne them and then dice them and get like almost perfect little quarter squares like you would get in a can. So to me, it's just a little bit of time, but it's almost relaxing because it's monotonous. It's not brain engaging work. So I can sit there and listen to a podcast or a Audible book or Christmas music right now. Yes, I know it's in November. I already have a tree up and I'm already listening to Christmas music. Once the local station goes to Christmas, then that's when I start to listen to Christmas. So it is what it is. Hate me all you want, but in our house, it's Christmas right now. Only very mildly. We don't have a ton of decorations. We keep it very simple. But once you put the kale in the Zuppa Toscana, then you cook it for like 5 more minutes, and then we're going to let it start cooling off. Because I am going to freeze these soups, I don't want to like put the milk and stuff in it, the cream in it hot when I don't have to, because we're going to freeze it. So it's going to be cooling down. So I'm going to let it cool down quite a bit before I put the milk in it. So now we are back to the corn chowder. And with the corn chowder, the recipes always call for cooking bacon first and then taking the bacon out and leaving like a tablespoon of the grease, and then add butter and starch your onions and that process. I don't want to freeze bacon with my corn chowder because it doesn't stay crispy. And so what I do, instead of cooking bacon for it, I just go ahead and use saved bacon grease. So that is what I'm showing you in this jar. I just have it in a mason jar beside my stove. I have one of the old-fashioned grease tins that like drains the bits and pieces off the top and stores it, but it needs to be cleaned out from some really old grease, and I haven't done that. So mason jar it is. It's okay. So there it is. There's the bacon grease and the butter in the bottom of the pot. Please remember, I am making a 2.5 times batch. So this looks like a whole lot more than what you would actually need just for dinner. But I am doing it big. I mean, my personal opinion is if you're going to the trouble of making soup or stews or lasagnas or things that can take time but are also a volume thing, go ahead and make a lot more and put it in the freezer and save yourself some time and money down the road, because you don't need a whole bag of potatoes to make a soup recipe. But if you times it by 2 or possibly 3, depending on what you're making, you can go ahead and use that whole bag, not have to worry about having a rotting potato in your cabinet. You are lying if you say you've never had that happen. You're lying, okay? We've all had it happen. This way, you just go ahead and use it all if you don't have anything else prepared, planned for those potatoes. And you have dinner 2 or 3 times in the future when you need a quick emergency meal. So, here we go, back to doing potatoes. Now, another thing I have done, I don't remember if I referenced this in a previous video, or I may have filmed something where I was planning to reference it, like a Meals of the Week. I have been saving some of my meals that I make for a compilation video when I need to of Meals of the Week. I have not used them yet, and it's been a couple months, and I've got quite a stash of them. I probably should do that soon. But one of the things I do when I'm working with potatoes, especially like the russets, if I had not been making a double batch of the soup, I would have actually saved out some and topped them with chili. I swear I mentioned this last week, because we had that for dinner like 2, 3 weeks ago. But that's another way to use up the potatoes. Again, it all goes into prep work. And yes, this is prep work. This is preparing actual potatoes and food for these recipes. But prep work is also meal prepping and thinking about how to use these ingredients if you're buying. I saw something on Facebook. It was either today or yesterday when I was scrolling. And it said cooking at home every night is not cheaper than eating out. It very much depends on what you're cooking at home. If you are cooking because you're like, oh, I can make better food at home for cheaper, and you're cooking steak every night and bourbon mushrooms and chicken Alfredo, like if you are cooking these elaborate meals that you can't typically afford at the restaurants, then no, you're probably not going to save money, especially with the price of beef if you're buying steaks at the store. However, if you cook some meals that are like bulk meals and you use up and are very intentional about how you use these ingredients, like a carton of heavy cream, if you only need 4 tablespoons of heavy cream, then you've got the rest of this carton. So that $4 for that carton of cream, of course, is going to be a waste of money and might make you feel like it's more expensive. But if you plan on making a couple recipes of soup and you're going to use up that heavy cream and store the rest of it, then it's definitely not more, because you're going to break that price down per quart of soup. And so your quart of soup is going to probably cost the same, maybe a little more or a little less than the canned Progresso soups at the store. But it's going to be a heck of a lot better for you. But then if you make it in bulk, then you're going to save. You're going to save a lot. You're going to save time. You're going to save gas going to the restaurants. So, yeah, you don't have to make all, like, high ingredient, high cost foods just because you're eating at home. But to save money, either way, you also don't have to live off of peanut butter and jelly. There are ways that you can maximize your money. And we did talk about this last week. That's probably why I was talking about the potatoes and the chili, because I was talking about cost effectiveness last week. I'll put that up here. But you can maximize your money by being very intentional and preparing what ingredients you can use together to maximize their effectiveness and stretch that dollar. So I would be hard pressed for anyone to show me that it is more expensive to eat at home and cook than it is to eat out. You're doing something wrong. We grow our own meat and have animals, and it's still probably cheaper, or at least on par with if we bought everything at the store but purchased higher quality ingredients like organic and stuff, because that's the same type of quality that we're getting out of our yard. It's still probably cheaper or on par with that. So that's way better than eating out at some expensive, local grown restaurant. So here we are. We're finishing up these videos. I've been running my mouth, and I don't know if I've missed anything, but it's mostly just assembling the ingredients, which I will link the original recipes that I cook from below. I don't think I have a whole lot of tweaks for this. I do know I add jalapenos to my corn chowder, or like green chilies if you don't have like homegrown jalapenos or whatever. But I think that's about the only thing I change. But I let both the soups cool down a little bit, added the cream. This one's the corn chowder. The Zuppa Toscana one, I kind of wish I had added my Parmesan cheese to it, like here, so that Parmesan cheese would help thicken it a little bit. I did not, because Parmesan cheese is usually added on top, kind of like at the restaurant. So I did not add it before I froze it. So I kind of wish I had done that. But the corn chowder, you have to have everything added. And then I took the sound completely out. Normally I keep it at 10% on these clips, just so there's some background noise if I stop talking. But the immersion blender is super loud, especially in these metal pots. So I took the sound out for this little short clip. But with corn chowder, you do want to use the immersion blender, and you don't want to take all of the chunks out. You don't want it to be like a perfectly smooth potato soup type thing, but you want to take some of those big chunks of onion and potato and everything down. So you want it to have like a quarter of the chunkiness that it would if you had not done the immersion blender. So semi-smooth. You still want it to have some good texture to it, just not really big chunks. And you always want to taste everything before. I definitely needed to add some salt. I ran out of my salt that I can just dump, and so I was having to use the salt grinder, so it's a little harder to judge how much salt you're putting in. So we're back to the Zuppa Toscana soup, and you will see I am packaging up. I prefer to can a lot of soups, but we have been going through them, and because I also make soup for others, I have found these. I hate that they're plastic. I tried using the cardboard, but I felt like it didn't have as much of an impact on the environment and everything. However, with soup specifically, when it thaws from the freezer, the cardboard gets soggy and is weird, and I just didn't trust it. And so I have started buying the plastic takeout, like Chinese soup containers in bulk, so that I save money. And I do reuse them here for my personal use. However, I don't reuse them. Like if I give them to someone and they like, here, do you want it back? No. I only use it for my personal stuff, reuse it. But you can see a double batch of this soup gave me 8 quarts. So I only need like 2 quarts for my family if I'm going to serve like a salad or a sandwich or something with it, which I usually try to do. It's very rare that we don't eat something with the soup. So I think chili is probably the only one that we will just eat bowls of chili. Or chicken noodle soup. We'll just eat bowls of chicken noodle soup. But everything else we usually have like a salad or a sandwich or something with. So 8 quarts of soup is going to give me 4 nights of dinner if I put something with it. And then I got another 8, was it 8 or 10 out of the corn chowder. So that's another 4 to 5 nights. So an hour and a half of making soup just gave me 8 or 9 nights of dinners for an hour and a half of work. I don't know that you can beat that. And I honestly don't know that you could do that with a whole lot of different things other than soups that are fully done. Now, you can do a lot of freezer prep, and some of the stuff's like not cooked all the way. I don't know. You probably could. And I'll have to time it. But anyway, that's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this. Recipes will be in the comments or in the description. Leave me a comment, say hello, and let me know what you think. See you later, guys.